Welcome into normally the college football show each Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific. But today and next week, we are breaking down the NFL season win totals. Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, Robbie Veno, WagerTalk.com as well. Also check out SportsMemo.com, $2 Tuesdays, guys. Robbie, welcome in, man. Happy Tuesday morning to you.
Happy Tuesday morning to both of you guys. Glad to be back here again. We're going to switch it up just a little bit today. Look at some NFL season over/under wins, but it looks like we'll probably get right back to college football next week because it looks like college football will make an attempt to go here. So little bit different today, but I think it'll still be informative for those watching.
Yeah, we got 2 weeks to get in the NFL, and then likely we can hit back on the college football. We got every game on the board as well, Robbie, which Robbie Veno has been a mainstay on. And Ralph also throwing out a lot of college football content, so check him out on Twitter at CalSportsLV, WagerTalk.com. Ralph, welcome in, buddy.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. College football starts Saturday. I don't know why you guys aren't excited. It is Central Arkansas against Austin Peay. It's on ESPN this Saturday. So I will be watching college football Saturday night. And I will likely have a playout if they post a game. These are two teams that I've looked at that I'm sure there will be a line. And if there is value in that line, make sure you check it out. I will have a selection on it. I'm sure Johnny and I will discount it down to something crazy because it's an FCS game, but it is on regular ESPN at 9 o'clock. So I'm excited for college football.
Hey, I'm excited about that as well. Ralph, have you dug into it at all?
I did. Central Arkansas is a team that, has been a good team. They were top 15 as far as the FCS poll goes preseason. They lost their quarterback from last year, but they have their starter back from 2018. They have a strong O-line. They've got a ton of receivers, one of the best receiving groups in the FCS. So Austin Peay I'm still digging into. So as far as which way I'm going, I don't know yet. But Central Arkansas is a legitimate team.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Robbie, and Ralph, you might know this. Austin Peay doesn't jump off the board at me knowing anything about him. I remember their college basketball team a little bit, but Central Arkansas, they actually beat a Sun Belt team, I believe Louisiana Lafayette or somebody like that, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Do you guys remember that?
Well, Austin Peay was in the playoffs last year. They went 11-4. They upset Sacramento State. They lost to Montana State in the quarterfinals. And Central Arkansas, they lost to North Dakota State, in a close games, on a last-second shot. So both teams are clearly top 20 type FCS teams. And just for you guys paying attention, if you look at the power ratings last year, and I do power rate FCS teams as well, because here in Vegas, the Superbook does have FCS lines, and a few other places are carrying them. Both teams finished about 110 or 115 out of the 130 FBS teams. So both teams were stronger than the bottom 10% of the FBS teams, the Akrons, the Connecticuts, the Massachusetts, the New Mexico State. So, this is quality football.
And you do expect a competitively priced game. Is the line already out?
I have not seen a line. That's why I'm hesitant to tell you which way I'm leaning as far as the favorite goes, because I have not seen a line or a total yet. But, I shot some DMs out to a couple sportsbook guys to see if they're going to have the game back this morning. No one's gotten back to me yet, but I'm sure once someone posts the line, the others will all have it up. I mean, ESPN, college football, we could be playing, and if it's on ESPN, someone's going to post the line and we could bet it.
And Drew, real quick, because you'll get right into this for Austin Peay, and Ralph's correct. I'm also a guy who keeps FCS power ratings. Both teams were playoff teams last year, but the head coach at Austin Peay is Mark Hudspeth, the guy who used to coach Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah. And
he turned them around in 1 year. So you've got dynamic offense on one side, Central Arkansas. A lot of people think they might be the best in the Southland this year, a team that can put up points, and a team head coached by Mark Hudspeth on a major turnaround last year. So good game. Ralph, glad you brought it up because for those of us who love college football, whether it be FBS or FCS, it'll be a good watch on Saturday.
Yeah, it will be a lot of fun. singled out ESPN game, there'll definitely be lines up. So that will be a fun one, Ralph. Guys, but we are talking NFL here. We're talking season win totals. This week we're talking AFC. Next week we'll talk NFC. So first up, we're going to start on the east side here. We got New England, Buffalo, New York Jets, and the Miami Dolphins. Of course, the New England Patriots 12-4 last year. Buffalo Bills 10-6, New York Jets 7-9, and the Miami Dolphins is surprising 5-11, hitting their over season win total. And guys, this year, just recapping it real quick, reading off the I believe Westgate season win totals here. We got New England Patriots at 9. We got the Buffalo Bills also at 9. We got the New York Jets at 7. And the Miami Dolphins are posted at 6 at the Westgate. Ralph, I know, and we'll just open it up here, guys, to any thoughts on the AFC East, which teams to bet on the overs, maybe which teams to bet any underlooks here. So, Ralph, just throwing it over to you to start in the AFC East, man. What are your thoughts?
I'm just going to run through what's happened the last 3 years. And if anyone wants this information, it's at WagerTalk on my homepage. It's on the WagerTalk NFL schedule guide. But I went through in the last 3 years and I marked wins and losses because people don't remember. I mean, the only team in the AFC East to go over their win total each of the last 2 years, the Miami Dolphins. I mean, that's a bar bet you would win because they were 4.5 last year. They went 5-11. They were 6.5 2 years ago. They went 7-9. The Jets are 0-3-1 the last 4 years. Under last year, under in 18, pushed in 17, and under in 2016. The Patriots are actually 4-0-1. So in the last 5 years, if you bet the Patriots over, you've won 4 of them and you pushed 1. And the Bills were over last year, under in 2018, over in 2017. Now, one thing I want to note for anyone that's new to betting win totals, you absolutely have to fill out your schedule with win losses. Don't look through a schedule and start saying, looks like a win, looks like a win, looks like a win. Especially those division games. You need to write a W on one team, which means you're writing an L on the other team. So I always have all 4 schedules in front of me when I do the wins and losses. Again, in division opponents, only one time the last 3 years have all 4 teams gone over the win total or all 4 under. So that's a rarity. That was the NFC East last year where all 4 went under the season win total. So if you're going to have a couple guys with win totals over, the odds are the other couple guys are going to be under. So I'll let Rob talk a little bit before I jump into my best bets in the East.
Have at it, Robbie.
Yeah, it's a interesting division, Ralph Andrew, just because of the New England situation. Now we're in the last couple of days. It looks as if Cam Newton will be the starting quarterback for this team, which makes a lot of difference in what I think you perceive New England to be able to do offensively this year. Apparently, he's already made a real connection with Julian Edelman, which is important in this offense. And Bill Belichick kind of raving about how Cam has taken over here. So I think that puts a little bit of boost into the New England side. This division, if you just take strength of schedule based off of last season's win totals, this particular division plays the toughest schedules of all 32 teams. You have New England ranked with the toughest, the Jets ranked with the second toughest, Miami third, and Buffalo tied for 5th. So nothing easy about the schedules outside of the division where these teams are concerned. I took a look at Buffalo. I just like what they did last year, and I like the acquisition of Stephon Diggs to this offense to give them another big playmaker on that side of the football, which they somewhat lacked last year at certain times. Win total is 9 here. The updated number is 9 minus 20. You could have gotten even before. I still think Buffalo is likely to be a 10-6 team, but it's the only team in this 4-team division, guys, that I have even a lean on. And Buffalo's not strong for me. Just basically my best lean in this division. The Jets, I love the improvement across the offensive line. I would have loved to get a 6.5 rather than a 7, but you get a 7 here, so I'll pass on that. For Miami, a lot of good things going on down there. I just don't know how quickly it'll gel. When will we see Tua? Can Ryan Fitzpatrick hold up one more season? With all the shifting in personnel, can they be cohesive right off the bat? And of course, the last thing, which, we've talked about at length in our college football shows, is in Miami's case, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're putting 13,000 max in the stands for Miami Dolphin games.
Yeah, that's correct.
But not everybody's putting fans in the stands, so it'll be interesting to see how these certain teams react at home with empty stadiums. Out of those four guys, I would say lean towards Buffalo over 9 minus 120. Just think they're the class of the division at this point in time. And with the extra game-breaking wide receiver, might put them over the top.
Guys, I mean, breaking down the AFC East, both of you guys kind of pointed out some good facts there. I guess my best play, the only actual NFL season win total I've bet so far is the New England Patriots over 9. A lot of the reasons you talked about, Robbie, in terms of, Cam Newton kind of motivated here, kind of, almost a sense of kind of last shot at really making it in the NFL, a kind of second half of his career, so to speak. I think that is a huge factor in the step up in the quarterback talent. But they have had a lot of, guys kind of opt out, COVID-19 opt out. So that happened after I placed my bet. So it kind of took a little bit of wind out of my sails, how I feel about that bet. And talking about the Miami Dolphins here, Robbie, I almost feel that if Ryan Fitzpatrick plays all the games, that bodes well for the Dolphins season win total over. Whereas if they go to Tua pretty early on, that might mean your season win total over bet might be in a little bit, more murky water there, just because they didn't get off to as good of a start there.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Drew. If you're going to play it, if I was going to play it, I'd play it over with Miami, just because they came on strong last year and appear to be on the path upward rather than downward, which is where they were under Brian Flores when they started last year. But good coach. It looks like they've got the ship turned in the right direction. I just have a hard time playing up and over 6 with that team right now. And I'll let Ralph go ahead because he hasn't gotten a chance to talk about the division yet.
I want to bring up a couple strength of schedule numbers. Now, Robbie, your numbers were from last year's final records. When I did my power ratings and did the WagerTalk NFL schedule guide, I did my strength of schedule based on my current power ratings with the home edge with fans. And if you break it down with my power ratings this year, the Jets actually have the number 6 toughest schedule, the New England Patriots, the number 10, Miami 23, and Buffalo number 20. I have no bets in this division. I do lean Buffalo over. I agree with Robbie. My top bet in this division, and Prez and Mid-Major Matt and I broke down each division on the presidential NFL address over the summer. I waited on the Buffalo to win the division in case the Patriots signed a quarterback. If the Patriots went with Jarrett Stidham, I would have been on Buffalo to win the division. But since they didn't, I think the value's gone away because now you have a motivated guy taking the minimum salary. Those are situations where a quarterback can really excel. I do have a bet with the Prez as well. I have Miami under the season win total. And Drew, you made a great point. I am certainly hoping Tua is available. And I look at their schedule. They start off with New England, Buffalo, at Jacksonville, which is a winnable game, Seattle, at San Fran, at Denver. So I'm hoping for a 1-4 or an 0-5 start. And then they want to go with the young quarterback moving forward. So no bets. I have leans Buffalo over, and I have against you guys, I lean Miami under.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like Miami over. I mean, especially at a 6, like you were pointing out, Veno. I mean, 7 and 9 is what they got to go to win this,
right?
And I mean, is Tua even 100%?
He's been practicing, but there's been no contact, so I have no idea yet what they have said. One more point I want to make out. You talked about those opt-outs. Remember, Miami and the Jets are playing the number 1 and number 2 defense last year from points per game. And probably one of the most important stats I look at is the yards per play diff last year, which gives you, I think, is the best assessment of a team. Miami was number 32 last year at minus 1.2 yards per play diff. So they've got a long way to go. That 5-win season was very misleading the way it happened for them.
Yeah, that's another reason I lean under with them. Guys, we do have a couple questions in the chat box. Ryan, Diehard MMA, what is up, buddy? Clint there. Walla Walla in the house. Thanks for joining us, guys. Ryan asking a question here in the chat box. How would you all adjust home field advantage in the spreads with limited or no fans? Robbie, you bring up 13,000 fans going to be in South Florida for Miami Dolphin home games. And if another stadium has 0, would that change your home field advantage at all?
Well, I think for teams that are going to have fans in the stands, I mean, you would never give them the full home field advantage like we're used to giving them, applying a full home field advantage number, but you would give them a fraction of it. Whereas teams with no home field advantage, and I guess there's plenty out there that would say the LA Chargers played with no home field advantage whatsoever the last couple of years, right? So they're kind of used to it. But those teams in particular, Drew, it's hard to gauge. I don't know how Ralph went about that, but for me, I think every team will react differently, and I would still stand by my feeling that home teams with no fans that are favored in games, and let's just say NFL doesn't have particularly huge spreads all the time, but let's just say they're a touchdown favorite, and they get behind early by 2 scores. Those teams, generally, you don't worry about them. You feel like they're going to come back. They're the better team. They're at home. They've got the fans behind them. Without the fans behind them to motivate them, will teams come back from early first quarter deficits against road underdogs? I have a feeling that we'll see road upsets this year because of that factor.
Okay. And Ralph, anything what Veno said? And also want to ask you a question because I don't get normally to kind of listen to the mainstream radio guys, but I was listening to Colin Cowherd a few days ago, and he brought up an interesting fact of why he couldn't go to Dodgers games, because they could actually enforce the social distancing because you have seated, numbers there on your seats. I'm kind of surprised the NFL isn't letting 20% capacity, kind of what Miami's doing around league wide, just because you could kind of force people to sit social distancing. Do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Well, I mean, the NFL is leaving it up to the teams because some governors have said no fans. So, they can't outrank what a governor says. My point is this. The NFL home field edge is so much different than in college football. NFL home field edge is probably 2.5 tops. And the 2.5s are maybe the Seattles, the KCs, and, the Dome when it's rocking down in New Orleans. So we're only talking 2.5. So if we're taking 60%, we're only talking a point. College football is a different story where my power ratings go to 6 on a Penn State whiteout or an LSU night game. So to me, I'm not worried about the NFL. It may be a 1-point difference. If something occurs where we see it's more than that, I'll make the adjustment. But, one thing I've learned is we're all seeing this for the first time. No one can say they know. No one should be basing big bets on what they think because it's a first-time scenario. So like everyone else's handicappers, we're going to be waiting to see what happens and making adjustments from that week to week. All
right, guys, all set for next division here?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. AFC North up next. We got the Baltimore Ravens, 14-2 last year. Pittsburgh Steelers, 8-8. Cleveland, 6-10. Cincinnati, 2-14. That's all their AFC North straight up standings from last year. And for this year's season win totals from the Westgate, right now, Baltimore Ravens, 11.5. We got the Cincinnati Bengals, 5.5. Cleveland Browns, 8.5, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, 9.5. So looks like a pretty competitive division here with Baltimore a little bit kind of lean up on everybody else. But Ralph, throw it over to you. AFC North, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, Baltimore at 14-2 crushed their win total. Baltimore the last 3 years over push, so 201. Cincinnati Bengals actually 3 straight unders. They've gone under by 4 games, by a half game, and by 1.5. The Browns under, and the Steelers back-to-back unders. So, when you have a team winning 14 and running through the division like they did with Baltimore, you're usually going to have 3 unders. So, I will throw out my strength of schedules and then throw it to Robbie to see for comparison reasons based on last year's finals or based on my starts. So strength of schedule in the AFC North, by far the weakest because of their crossover games. Cincinnati's number 14. They're the only ones in the top 25 because they play Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh number 27, Baltimore number 29, and the Cleveland Browns play the number 31 schedule this year based on my power ratings.
Robbie, what are your thoughts?
If you just go off of win-loss records from last season, we'll use this as a sort of separator here. 4 of these teams rank in the bottom 6. Cincinnati will be number 27 in the NFL, playing against a 477 win percentage. Cleveland, 29th, 461 win percentage against. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 31st, playing teams that compiled a 457 win percentage, and Baltimore, the weakest of all in the NFL, according to last year's wins and losses, playing a schedule that racked up a 438 win percentage. So certainly a weaker, much softer than the AFC East for sure is the AFC North.
Guys, I'll tell you, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, 4-12, huge under trenders, good defense here. But this upcoming year, seeing Pittsburgh at 9.5, I got to tell you, if I haven't bet one in this division yet, but I would lean here with the question marks at the quarterback position, 9.5. I kind of like the under here. I might get here before NFL kickoff. But Ralph, any thoughts on that and any best bets from the AFC North?
Well, it's surprising to see. Your top 3 teams are what, 12.5? We didn't read them down. So the Ravens are 11.5, Cleveland's 8.5, and Pittsburgh is 9.5, with Cincinnati being 5.5. So there's no division that has their top 3 teams with 19.5 season win totals. 29.5. That is an incredible number to have 3 teams at 29.5. So where are your losses coming from? You know what I mean? When you play out the division games, you need to put wins and losses. So, if you think Baltimore is going to be over 11.5, there's no way Cleveland and Pittsburgh are both going to be over as well because of the division game. So this division especially, I think you can only get 2 overs no matter who. So do you like the Cleveland over? Do you like the Pittsburgh over if you're buying the Browns? The Browns love. I will say this. Remember that Cincinnati, yes, a rookie quarterback, but we've seen rookie quarterbacks have success. Let's not forget that last year they had 7. They were -7 close losses. That is the most in the NFL in the last 6 years. And a close loss to me is within a touchdown. So you're within 1 score. That means they had 7 close losses and no close wins, or 8 close losses and 1 close win. So they were -7 on the season. You have a healthy AJ Green this year, and you have Mixon. You look at the Browns. I mean, their offense has probably as many Pro Bowlers as any team besides Kansas City. If you add in the running backs and the wide receivers, and you add in some tight ends, and the talent there is incredible. So this is a division that I have not played anything. I would lean Baltimore over, which is surprising, to go 11.5. Baltimore is favored in every game this year. The only time they're not favored by more than a field goal is when they host the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have them as a 2.5-point favorite. So you give me a situation like Baltimore where you have last year's number 3 scoring defense, number 4's defense in yards per game. They were number 1 in yards per game diff. They were number 1 in points per game diff. They were number 3 in yards per play diff. You're a favorite in every game. You got a defense and a running game. My top play in this division would be Baltimore over. And if Lamar gets hurt, then I would take a flyer on the Browns or Steelers to win the division and get more value than just betting the over on one of those 2 teams.
Always a tricky handicap, does the quarterback get hurt or not? But good analysis.
You can't count on it, right? Never handicap a game saying, if the quarterback gets hurt, they have a crappy backup. There's some teams that have incredible backups. The New Orleans Saints, right? You have Jameis Winston behind Drew Brees, but you can never make a bet, nor should you ever make a bet saying, I like the backup, so I'm going to bet the over, or they have no backup, so I'm going to bet the under.
Ralph, I'm not going to say I like put it into my numbers, but one of the last things I do before placing the bet is look at who the backup is, not for a single game, but for a season win total bet. If I'm betting the over, I do like to know who the backup is. You don't factor that in at all?
Yeah. Well, obviously you're figuring in the roster. Mm-hmm. So yes, I mean, to me, then you can also say, to me, probably the most important player on the field is the center, but you never look at who the backup center is or put that into your number because he's not high profile. But, we've seen more teams fall down because of center being injured than we did Drew Brees last year. How many people thought, his backup would go 5-0? Teddy Bridgewater would go 5-0, and he's 19-1 as a dog now in those numbers. So I totally agree, Drew. You're looking at it as a whole, as part of your roster. But if I'm betting a team, I'm just betting that quarterback's going to be healthy the whole year.
All right, good stuff, Ralph. And Robbie, anything in kind of conclusion here? Any best bets in the AFC North?
Yeah, it's hard. I'll say this much. I mean, where Baltimore is concerned, when you add Derek Wolfe from the Denver Broncos and Calais Campbell to your defensive line, to a defense that was already outstanding, that's troublesome for the quarterbacks inside that division. And I think, again, to kind of counteract a Baltimore over argument, can they go 6-0 against this division? You can probably get your 2 against Cincinnati, but it's a lot different to play Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger than it is to play them with Devlin Hodges. And the Cleveland Browns, who everybody was piling on last year, as Ralph mentioned, still have that talent level, which is insane. And they acquired more this year. It's, for me, there's probably too much personnel turnover in Cleveland, and what they're going to do in a season-long projection for me becomes too much guesswork. So I have to lay off of that. I do think Pittsburgh will be better. Whether they can get to 10-6 is questionable. But Baltimore is going to be scary with that defensive line. They don't have the greatest set of corners in the world. But when you can put that type of pressure that Derek Wolfe and Calais Campbell can add to that defensive front, like I said, it's just going to be trouble. And it's, I know Ralph had them ranked low 2 strength of schedule. When you're playing a strength of schedule that's that weak, and a lot of that, especially where in the numbers that I used, which were last year's season 1 loss records, Pittsburgh's is kind of phony, right? Pittsburgh is not that bad of a team with Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback. So you got to take all of this with a grain of salt. I have no plays in this division. To me, again, it is a lot of guesswork. But I could see Baltimore having a little more trouble running the table in this division than they had last year.
Yeah, go ahead, Ralph.
I'm saying what if, but to me, everyone was so high on the Browns last year. Mm-hmm. You had Baker coming in and, his second year. But you have to remember, they had gone through, 6 OCs in 7 years. They've gone through how many coaches in how many years? I think the Browns last year were like the 49ers 2 years ago. Remember how everyone was on the 49ers 2 years ago as, oh, my God, they're going to be the best team in the world. They had a quarterback injury. They fell on their face. And last year we saw how good they were a year removed. To me, the Browns are just like that team where they have the talent. Now we'll see if they can put it together. But for those that don't follow the Browns, they will be the Minnesota Vikings in the AFC. To me, they are going to be an under team. They're going to go with 2 fullbacks. They're going to go with fullbacks. They're going to go with tight ends. You have the new head coach who's from Minnesota. You brought in a backup quarterback to Baker Mayfield, which I think is a great move, who was the backup of the Vikings for the last few years to teach him the offense. So everything to them is, to me, the Browns are going to be a defensive under team. And as long as Baker cannot make mistakes, it'll just be tough to see if he can keep that receiving core happy, because Beckham wants the ball and Landry wants the ball. And you've got a lot of other guys that could be starting receivers in other teams behind Beckham and Landry. So it's a plethora of talent from the wideouts and the tight ends.
All right, guys, 2 divisions down, 2 to go here. Also, remember out there, it is $2 Tuesday at WagerTalk and Sports Memo. We got Marco D'Angelo with his $2 play up and available at WagerTalk.com. Also, Ralph Michaels, check out his MLB totals game of the week. And Robbie Veno has a 5% NFL week 1 up and available at WagerTalk.com. So check them out, guys, for those best bets. We got the AFC South up next, breaking it down right now. We got Houston, last year's straight up record 10-6. Talking about the Houston Texans there, sitting atop the division at 10-6. Tennessee 9-7, getting the wild card berth and surprising in the playoffs. Finished the season 9-7 straight up. Indianapolis Colts 7-9, and the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at 6-10. This year's season win totals at the Westgate. We got the Houston Texans only at 7.5, guys. Kind of a surprising number there to me. Indianapolis Colts sitting at 9. The Jacksonville Jaguars at 4.5, and the Tennessee Titans at 8.5. So, Robbie, talk about competitive divisions. Last year, this one was finished at least competitively in the standings. What are you thinking this upcoming year for the AFC South?
Hey, Rob, let me jump in. I got a question before you guys start. You know, we've both all been handicapping for a long time. Have you ever in the NFL seen a team that has gone 21-11 in 2 years, won their division each of the 2 years, has their quarterback back, and goes from not only the division favorite to the number 3 team in the division, with the Colts and Tennessee both 6-1, and you're getting 3-1 on the Houston Texans. Again, back-to-back leader with your quarterback back, and you go from the number 1 favorite to the number 3 team in the league.
The answer to that is no, never seen it. And what's amazing about it, Ralph, is it's based on one player. It's based on DeAndre Hopkins. Is DeAndre Hopkins really worth that drop in the price that's attached to the Houston Texans? It may be worth that amount of plus to the Arizona Cardinals, but is it worth that much of a minus to the Houston Texans, who, went out and admirably filled out their wide receiving core, right? I mean, they went out and got Randall Cobb, and right now they're going to try. The question remains for the Houston Texans: can Will Fuller stay healthy? If so, what they're trying to do probably plays here, because they want to be a team that stretches the field. They want to use speed, let Deshaun Watson throw the ball deep, and probably use Randall Cobb and the tight ends underneath. Things should be opened up for them. Deshaun Watson's mindset was not good after the trade of DeAndre Hopkins. Boy, he was vocal, but I think, now that we're close to football season, Deshaun Watson is not somebody who's going to be, take the opening snap with a negative frame of mind. I think he's going to play the way he always plays. Question will be on the defensive side of the football for them. Can they, pick it up a couple notches? Because last year in that Kansas City game, Kansas City did it to a lot of teams, but the lead that they blew, the defense was just lost, and especially the pass defense, guys. The pass defense for this team was hideous. J.J. Watt and company have to get more of a pass rush on. The one that pops out to me the most, again, I have to phrase this 2 different ways. The team I like the best in this division is Indianapolis, because I love teams with offensive line play that is elite. And to me, you could argue the Indianapolis Colts have the best offensive line in the NFL. And it's something that Phillip Rivers didn't have with the Chargers the last couple of years. Phillip Rivers running for his life. Running's probably not a great description of what Phillip Rivers does, stumbling for his life. But he threw up a lot of bad passes because of it. He was under constant heat. Here he's going to have a great running game to lean on, great protection from that offensive line. So I like the Colts. I just didn't like the number. I don't want to bet a team to have to go 10-6 in this particular division. Where I'd lean the strongest would be Tennessee. You're asking Tennessee to come back and just be 9-7. I think they learned a lot from last year. There's some losses, some personnel losses for sure on this squad, but I think Ryan Tannehill grew in leaps and bounds, and I think they're just the best on both the offensive and defensive line. They really pushed Baltimore around in that playoff game last year. where they just ran it down the Baltimore Ravens' throat with Derrick Henry as Baltimore was trying to come back and never could get back in that game. So for me, I think it would be Tennessee over the 8.5, guys. I think they can go 9-7, but I think the best team in the division might end up being the Indianapolis Colts.
Interesting, Robbie. I got 2 plays here. I haven't bet yet, Ralph, but I could talk about them after your preview of the division.
Go ahead, Drew. I'll follow you. Let's get the plays out there. I want to hear them.
All right. Well, I haven't bet them yet, but just 2 that I have circled here. And
let me open my account. Hang on, Drew.
No, it's not going to be moving lines, anything like that, Robbie. But all right, I'll go after the Indianapolis Colts. And this is one it sounds like you're going to be on the other side of. I mean, sitting at 9 here, you talk about 10-6 in order to lose with Phillip Rivers at the quarterback position. I tend to be, fade the guys down the stretch, not to mention I don't think Phillip Rivers at this point in his career is all that. So the amount of interceptions that he threw last year, I get your point with the offensive line. And that's something that I'm kind of pumping the brakes on, but I do like the Indianapolis Colts under. And what you started it off with, Ralph. I mean, the Houston Texans at 7.5 with a position player making that much of a difference. Is that the only thing here? Or are we missing something else? Because with one of the better and underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, in Watson at the quarterback position, and we got Scott Brown saying here, Watson still hasn't had a losing season that he can remember. Neither can I. And I'm talking high school and college and NFL, go back for his whole football career here. I don't know what he played like in Pee Wee, but you're going to have to bet on him to have a losing season. I don't like that at all. So the 2 plays I'm looking at here, Ralph, are the Houston Texans over 7.5 to just go 8-8 or better, and the Indianapolis Colts under 9. What are your thoughts on those, man?
I keep saying I love the Texans, but I have not bet them. I don't know why. I agree with you, Rob. I think the Colts are the best team in the division. Couple advantages the Colts have are, they're back-to-back road games. Second of back-to-back road games, they're playing at Cleveland and at Las Vegas. Piece of cake. Not a piece of cake, but if you had to pick 2 places to go play back-to-back road games, they're better than some. Compared to Tennessee, they're playing back-to-back road games. They go to Baltimore, then they go to Indianapolis against a division foe. And then they close it out. They go to Green Bay in December, and then they finish off at Houston. So you have your 2 division foes playing after very difficult road games. That's a tough situation for the Titans to be in. I'm going to say this. If Houston doesn't blow a 21-0 lead to Kansas City and beats Kansas City, and the Tennessee Titans lose to the Ravens, would Texas have been the favorite in the division? The way those seasons finished on disparate results, the Tennessee Titans beating New England and Baltimore, Houston blowing that big lead to the Chiefs, I think there's so much of an overlay because of that. So I think there's value on the Houston Texans. If anything, I would bet them instead of betting the over because, if they're going to get to that 8-9 wins, then I'm going to try to get the 3-1 to win the division. I mean, what a value, a 3-1 to win the division for a team that's won 21 games. One thing I will say about Indianapolis, Phillip Rivers has not been good in close games. They're a dog in 5 games this year, and they're between the threes. So you're playing an opponent basically equal to you 12 of their 16 games. So Phillip Rivers is not going to be able to turn the ball over 20-plus times, but he probably won't have to, being able to run the ball behind the Colts O-line, who, in the O-line guide, Rob, I agree with you, clearly the best O-line. I will say this, though. They're the only team in the NFL last year where all 5 guys started all 16 games. Are you good because of the continuity, or, are you good anyway? Well, the continuity has something to do with it. But if you start losing 1 or 2 guys for multiple games and having to shift that O-line, they go from being an elite O-line to maybe just a good O-line.
Have at it, Robbie. Any closing thoughts here, man?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. If you're the Indianapolis Colts, you cross your fingers because there's not many seasons where you'll go through and not have a single injury across the offensive line. They did that last year. To do it 2 years in a row is, likely to be difficult. They do have some pieces up there that are so good that they're interchangeable. 4/5 of their offensive line is probably better than 20 other offensive lines in the NFL. So For Phillip Rivers, guys, I'll just say if I have the opportunity to take a quarterback with his intelligence at the line of scrimmage, with his leadership, and an offensive line that's going to protect and give him a running game that he can absolutely lean on, where he's not forced to throw 40 times a game, even though Frank Reich, running that Eagles offense from a couple of years ago, which he brought to Indianapolis, it does require some passing, but I just think he'll be much better for it because of the protection that he'll get. There'll be no unless teams blitz the heck out of him, which if you're a defensive coordinator, maybe that's your plan too. Let's blitz the heck out of this guy. But I would still take my chances with Phillip Rivers against the blitz.
And guys, last thing on the AFC South here, somewhat I'm forcing because of a mustache, but also it's 2020 and we've seen volatility in MLB, even the NBA to some extent. Do you think there's anything to betting on kind of surprises here? And I'm talking the Jacksonville Jaguars at just 4.5 season win total. Ralph, coming to you first, just to talk the Jags real quick. Do you have any thoughts on the Jags over or under 4.5?
I would lean under, and the reason is, I am so high on these other three teams that, Drew, this is one of those situations. If you take the Jags season and you say, are you going to get one division win? So that puts you at 1-5. Your other games, your other winnable games where you're under 3, which I call winnable. You host Miami week 3. You host Detroit, another winnable game before your bye. Those are the only 2 games where I have them as a dog of 5 or less. So you're going to have to pull multiple upsets. And again, when I write down the W's in the division, if I'm giving Houston, Indy, and Tennessee W's, I got to give those Jacksonville Jags the L's.
Okay. And Robbie, any opinion here on the 4.5 win total for the Jags?
I think what they did in the draft was outstanding, Drew, but I think that's more than 1 year away, right? They went through some turmoil last year, which resulted in some personnel losses that were, significant personnel losses. So to replace that isn't easy. And while I think that what they did in the draft, again, I think they've rebuilt personnel as well as they could and as quickly as they could. I just don't think those results will show up in the win column this year.
Drew, they have 9 rookies in their 2 deep right now. That's an incredible number. So obviously, if you're going to play those young kids, that's not the real depth chart. That's their working depth chart. But if you're going to have 9 rookies in your 2 deep, you're obviously looking towards next year.
And what about quarterback rankings in this division real quick? Would you go Watson? Then, who would you put at number 2? That's actually a great question.
If it were me, real quick, Ralph, I didn't mean to cut you off. If it were me, Watson's clearly number 1. I think as a group, Rivers with his offensive line to me would be 2 and Tannehill 2A. They're probably both tied right there. I think you could argue either way there. And then, of course, you put Gardner Minshew and his offensive line last. But Watson's the best quarterback in the division.
Yeah. And Ralph, I agree with Robbie, but I would actually put Phillip Rivers last and put Minshew above Phillip Rivers.
Oh, I wouldn't. I think this. I would clearly have Fitz number 2 and Rivers 3. Robbie did 1A and 1B. And granted, we're assuming Rivers is going to play well with a great offensive line and, with Mack and the Wisconsin running back behind him and play well. But until he does it, he still has to show me something. But I would take Phillip Rivers. If you said, here's the Colts team, who do you want behind quarterback? You want the mustache or Phillip Rivers? I'm going to take Phillip Rivers all day long for a 1-year season.
Interesting. Okay. Let us know in the chat box, guys.
Jacoby Brissett behind that if things don't go well, Ralph. So I think Jacoby Brissett sits right in there as well.
That's a good point. Almost a different question in itself, but yeah.
You can almost say Fitzpatrick at Miami was the exact same season as Rivers was with the LA Chargers. Fitzpatrick was a horrible quarterback ratio. What happens if you get an O-line and a running game? You can turn into if you are a quarterback and you have a running game and you can throw play action and they can't rush you because of play action, any quarterback's going to be successful. So to me, Phillip Rivers is just that mature quarterback that's going to have to change styles from being the gunslinger to the game manager but Fitz did the exact same thing in Tennessee, and I am betting that Rivers will do the same thing.
All right, guys. Well, we got one division left, only about 8 or 9 minutes left here in the show. Remember, it's $2 Tuesday at WagerTalk and sportsmemo.com. Check them out there. We got Marco D'Angelo's top play here for today, only $2 at WagerTalk.com. Also, check out Ralph Michaels' top MLB play of the week, 4%er up there at WagerTalk. And Robbie Veno's got his week 1 NFL 5%er up there at WagerTalk.com. So check out both of those plays. Guys, last division here for today's show. And keep in mind, next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, we'll be breaking down the NFC season win total. So come back and join us, and appreciate everybody chiming in on the chat box. And if you're liking the content, please give us the thumbs up button there. It does help us out. AFC West here, guys. Kansas City Chiefs 12-4 last year, also Super Bowl champions. Denver Broncos 7-9. Las Vegas Raiders, not the Oakland Raiders anymore, 7-9. LA Chargers finishing it up at 5-11. Also note they were 4-9-3 ATS. So depending on what numbers you got them, 4-12 ATS for the Chargers. Tough break there. Kansas City Chiefs 11.5. Their season win total for this year at the Westgate. We got the Denver Broncos sitting at 8 flat. Las Vegas Raiders 7.5, and the Los Angeles Chargers 8 flat again. So 3 teams kind of bunched together here in the season win totals, with the defending Super Bowl champions at 11.5. Ralph, chomping at the bit, man. What are you thinking in the AFC West?
How many times do we go back and go, damn, that number is so cheap? Last year, the Chiefs were 10.5. So, the Chiefs have gone over each of the last 4 years. So, the expectations keep moving. Their line keeps moving up. Obviously, they're a favorite in every game except Baltimore when they play them on the road. The Chiefs number where it is, I'm not going to play it because they had been like the New England Patriots, and they had a free ride in their division for most of the last couple of years with the Raiders, the Broncos, where they were 5-1 or 6-0 in the division. I think they're going to get challenged a few years. I am high on Denver. I am not as high as some people that talk about, the Broncos. The Broncos finished with that great 4-0 finish, and you add that defense to a quarterback that can play. My concern is this: you have a quarterback that in Drew Lock that played the last 5 games of the season against teams that were shutting down their season, and he looked good against them. If he had done that in the middle of the season or the beginning of the season, where the DCs were fully focused on what he was doing and trying to shut him down, I'd be much more excited. But Denver's one that I'm looking to see how they come out of camp. Denver over is the way I'm leaning. The Raiders, I don't know. They keep becoming an anomaly to me. I don't understand signing Mariota because he's such a different quarterback than your starter is. That was a weird decision to me. But, their young talent from their drafts the last couple of years looks to be legit. So KC, I'm not going to bet because I think they have a much more difficult schedule, and lean Denver over.
And Robbie, what are you thinking in the AFC West, man? This is an interesting division to handicap.
Well, it's the only play I made, and I made it 3.5-4 months ago and got a better number. But I'll still recommend it here. And I played Denver over 7.5. Loved what they did in the offseason. The signing of Jarrell Casey was huge for the middle of that defensive line. Now they wind up losing Derek Wolfe, but I think Jarrell Casey, and all indications out of camp is it's an upgrade at that spot. And they take AJ Bouye from Jacksonville to play one of the corners. And now that they become healthy with Bryce Callahan, who they got last year but sat out all last year with injury, the loss of Chris Harris Jr. doesn't seem as big. So defensively, we know Denver can hold up. They did a great job in free agency. Then they did an even better job in the draft. I mean, John Elway hit it out of the park in the draft. Jerry Jeudy right now already is being called by the coaching staff, by some of the coaching staff, the best route runner they've ever seen. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Alberto from Missouri at tight end has drawn rave reviews. So Locke has weapons upon weapons. They go out, they sign Melvin Gordon. to me, 7.5, you were only asking Denver to be an 8-8 football team, which I thought was without question the best bet at the time. Now they're up to 8. Still, they could be a 9-7 team. I really feel that way. You have a more competitive division. I think Ralph hit on that because the LA Chargers are not a 5-12 team. Tyrod Taylor takes over at QB. They'll be a little bit different looking in offense, but still have a lot of talent there, and the defense is insanely good. For KC, and the big signing of Mahomes, the big contract, and then they lose a couple of key secondary members here, guys. Kendall Fuller, they lose to free agency, but they lose Bashaud Breeland the other day for potentially a long time. So Kansas City defensively, of course, they can outscore anybody. But as Ralph said, they might not be able to just cakewalk through the division. It's going to be a tougher set of opponents. So for me, it was Denver over 7.5. I would still like them to go 9-7, go over 8. That's probably my strongest play in the AFC.
And Robbie, how much is that Tate at the quarterback position? His downfield accuracy, playing at Missouri, which I know you know a lot about, that was part of my factor in betting against them when he left, was because they miss his arm downfield. You think that replicates into the NFL?
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's already been commented on by his coaching staff that he's got the arm to do whatever he wants to do. The problem for Drew Lock at times, and even in college, guys, and I think Ralph hit on this a little bit when he talked about playing a weak schedule at the end of the season. The knock was he couldn't beat the upper tier of the SEC. He could only beat the mid-rung teams, although I think they did beat Florida 1 year with him at quarterback. That was his biggest win, but even in bowl games, he fell short. But you surround this guy who's an all-around athlete. He's a basketball player, too. He's an athletic quarterback that will have weapons upon weapons. Cortland Sutton to have extra receivers with him that can make plays downfield. I just think, they did a good job getting Graham Glasgow from Detroit to help that offensive line out, which had been a question mark. So for me, I think Drew Lock will be okay, and I think Denver in particular will be better than an 8-win team.
Ralph, any last thoughts here on the AFC West? Also, any thoughts on the LA Chargers and possibly starting a rookie quarterback?
There were 5 teams last year that had top 10 offense and top 10 defensive rankings.
That'd be the Kansas City
LA
Chiefs?
Chargers were one of them.
Oh wow!
The LA Chargers were number 5 in the league in yards per game diff. They outgained 11 or 12 of their opponents last year. It is the most misleading 5-11 record you're going to see. Number 5 at plus 54.4 yards per game last season. You don't turn the ball over. You don't lose those close games you lose. So, again, this division is much better. It's far the most improved division, taking the Chargers from 5-11, taking Oakland, their 7-win team, taking Denver from their 7 wins last year. But again, how much you cannibalize each other in the division is where you have to decide on betting your season win totals.
And Robbie, any closing thoughts here on the AFC West?
You think of some of the ways that San Diego lost games last year. Incredible. Some were so strange you couldn't even make them up. Yeah, Los Angeles. They lost some games in some very strange ways, guys. I'm thinking of John Hadel, right, Ralph, and Lance Allworth. To reverse those, it happens. So, like I say, this is a very competitive division this year. Kansas City will have a more difficult time with these guys, and we'll see if the Super Bowl hangover is real for KC.
I'll tell you, Ralph, the San Diego one, that doesn't bother me, man. I mean, if you call the Rams St. Louis, that one gets a little weird, but I figure you can call the Chargers San Diego Chargers for a couple more years. It doesn't bother me.
That's good because I do. That one slips as much as anyone. So, they're Chargers. I'll tell you what, Rob Veno is showing his age because when I think Chargers, I think Winslow and Fouts. And who are you, Rob? Who are you mentioning for the Chargers?
I was talking about John Hadel and Lance Allworth.
Damn, are you old, dude?
I think about Natron Means. Remember that guy?
Yeah, UNC.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ralph, any closing thoughts before we shut this down, man?
No, like I said, it's I've gotten into season win totals more, but it's something that I have a few bets down, and I'm not one to put my money out there for the whole year unless I really do find that I have at least in a game and a half of value from my legitimate power rating numbers and my projected records.
All right, good stuff. Follow Ralph on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Check out his work, WagerTalk.com. Also, remember, it's $2 Tuesday, and you can get his MLB 4%er up there, Game of the Week 4%er at WagerTalk.com. Robbie Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. His NFL Week 1 game up and available at WagerTalk. Robbie, anything to close out the show here?
No, good luck to everybody this NFL season. It's a little different because we don't have the preseason games, so even I have to shake my head a little bit and realize that it's right around the corner. You don't get that true feel of NFL's about to begin, but as soon as Saturday hits, with the game Ralph mentioned, Austin Peay, Central Arkansas, will all be in full football mood, believe me.
Saturday night college football. Going to be betting it this Saturday. I'm going to be talking about it a lot, guys. So come back and join us. Thanks for joining us for this show. Also, next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time, come back and join us. We're breaking down the NFC season win totals for Ralph Michaels, Robbie Veno. I'm Drew Martin. Guys, be safe. Best